Hello, my friends. As we're approaching Halloween, um, I thought I might record a few tales for adults as well. And Edgar Allan Poe, of course, is one of my favorites in creating a mood, but not as quite appropriate these days because his 19th century syntax and vocabulary are somewhat challenging for a lot of folks. But from an educational perspective, it's pretty good as well. Now, this story, The Cask of Amontillado, was not originally my favorite, but has grown upon me over the years. And so, with that in mind, I've decided to share it with you today. The thousand injuries of fortune I had done as I could. But when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You who so well know the nature of my soul, at length I would be avenged. This was a point definitely settled, but the very definite not only punish, but punish with impunity. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt at such to him who has done the wrong. Now, it must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his emulation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato. Was a man to be respected and even feared. He prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit, but for the most part, their enthusiasm is adapted to suit their time and opportunity, to practice imposture upon the British and Austrian millionaires. His countryman was a quack, but in the matter of old wines, he was sincere. In this respect, and bought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk one evening during the supreme madness of the carnival season that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with except drinking much. The man was motley. He had on a tight-fitting party-striped dress, and his head was surmounted by the conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today. But I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How? Incredible! I have my doubts," I replied. "And I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain. Amontillado! As you're engaged, I am on my way to Lucchese. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me Lucchese cannot tell Amontillado from Sherry. And yet some fools will let us go. Whither? To your boat. I have engagement. Come." "My friend, no. It is not the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The are insufferably damp. They're crusted with mire. Let us go nonetheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado, you have been imposed upon. And as for Lucchese, He cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado. Thus speaking, Fortunato drawing a rugal air closely about my person, I suffered him to hurry me to my palazzo. Turn until the morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. I took from their sconces 2 flambeaux, and giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. Passed down a long and winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together on the damp ground of the catacombs of the Montresors. The gait of my friend and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. "The pipe," he said. "It is farther on," said I. "But observe the white web work which gleams from these cavern walls." He turned toward me and looked into me. "Nitre?" he asked at length. "Nitre," I replied. "How long have you had that cough?" My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. "It is nothing," he said at last. I said with decision, "we will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved, happy as once I was. You're a man to be missed. For me it is no matter. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucchese." "Enough," he said. "The cough is a mere thing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough." "True, true," I replied, "and indeed I am alarming you unnecessarily, but should use all proper caution. A draught of this Medoc will defend us from the damps." Here I knocked off the neck of a bottle, which I drew from a long row of fellows that lay upon the mould. "Drink," I said, presenting him the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded to me familiarly while his bells jingled. "I drink," he said, "to the buried that repose around us." "And I to your long life." He again took my arm, and we proceeded. "These vaults," he said, "are extensive." "The Montreux," I replied, "were a great and numerous family." "I forget your arms. A huge human foot you are in a field of azure. The foot crushes a serpent's rampant, whose fangs are embedded in the heel." "And the motto?" "Nemo me impune licet." "Good," he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the Medoc. We had passed through walls of piled bones, with paused again, and this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm above the elbow. "The nitre," I said. "See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we will go back. Here it is too late. Your cough—" "It is nothing," he said. "Let us go on. But first, another draught of Medoc." I broke and reached him a flagon of De Grave, and he emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upward with gesticulation I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement, a grotesque one. You do not comprehend, he said. Not I, replied. Then you are not of the Brotherhood. How? You are not of the Masons. Yes, yes, I said, yes, yes. You? Impossible, a Mason? A Mason, I replied. A sign, he said. It is this, I answered, producing a trowel from beneath the folds of my roquelaire. You jest, he exclaimed, recoiling a few paces. But let us proceed to Amontillado. Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak, again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado, passed through a range of low arches, described, on and descending again, a road in flame. At the most remote end of the crypt there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. 3 sides of the interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. From the 4th, the bones had been sized. Within the wall, thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceived a still interior recess in depth about 4 feet, in width 3, its height 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed for no especial purpose use within itself, but formed merely the interval between 2 colossal supports of the roof of the catacombs, and was backed by one of their circumscribing walls of solid granite. It was in vain that Fortunato, unlifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depths of the recess. Its termination, the feeble light did not enable us to see. Proceed, I said. Herein is the Amontillado. As for Lucchese, he is an ignoramus, interrupted my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more, and I had fettered him to the granite. In its surface were 2 iron staples distant from each other about 2 feet horizontally. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. Passia, indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return. No? Then I must positively leave you. But I must first render you all the little attentions in my power. The Amontillado, ejaculated my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. Myself among the pile of bones of which I had before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low moan of a drunken man. There was then a long silence. I laid the second tier, and the third, and the fourth, and then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes. I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones, and finished without interruption the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th tier. The wall was now nearly upon a level with my breast. I again paused, and holding the flambeau over the masonwork, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled. Unsheathing my rapier, I began grope with it about the recess, but the thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the eighth, the ninth single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position. But now there came from out the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs on my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice which I had difficulty in recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "Ha ha ha ha! A very good joke indeed, and an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. He, over our wine. The Amontillado," I said. Yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Will not they be awaiting us at the palazzo? The Lady Fortunato and the rest. Let us be gone. Yes, I said. Let us be gone. For the love of God, Montresor. Yes, I said. For the love of God. But to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, "Fortunato!" No answer. I called again, "Fortunato!" No answer still. I thrust a torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. Then came forth in return only a jingling of the bells. My heart grew sick on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up against the new masonry. I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century no mortal had disturbed them. In pace requiescat. So rests Fortunato. Happy Halloween, kids.